Geometry Dash is one of the most challenging games of all time. Simply beating the main levels will take thousands of attempts to even the best of players, but there's a certain subset of gamers who try to beat this game as fast as humanly possible. Geometry Dash does not seem like much of a speedrun game. You start a level, and if you do everything as intended, you would end the level at the exact same time no matter what. So why has this seemingly unspeedrunnable game gathered hundreds of runners and millions of viewers? Games like Dark Souls, Hitman, Wii Sports Resorts, or The Simpsons Hit and Run have a clear way of being improved by either cleaner movement or skip discoveries. But there are very clear ways of saving time in Geometry Dash. In 2016, a popular Spanish YouTuber uploaded a deathless speedrun of the game. This is the first time anyone had done such a thing. Although impressive, his 3124 would not use any skips or tricks and would have a 7-second slowdown at cycles due to bad menuing. Luckily, this is not the category we will be talking about today, as a new level was released in January 2017, extending the full game category. Finger Dash was 85 seconds long, so the community now had a new goal, a 32:49. Before starting with the records, I want to explain the run. For the run to count, runners need to beat the 21 official levels. Every level in Geometry Dash has 3 coins, for which you need to take a secret path. There are 3 levels that have a coin requirement before they can be started. Glove Slip, which requires 10, Theory of Everything 2, requiring 20, and finally Deadlock, requiring 30, which means the player would need to beat at least 10 levels out of the 21 before they can get started on the hardest section of the run. Needless to say, this was extremely difficult, but the category being added to Speedrun.com incentivized players to start running the game. And now the question was, who would get the first deathless run in the new update? Lexicon is a name you definitely want to remember. He was the first person to get a 32:49 on the new update, but there is something curious about this run. Unlike Guitarpedo's run, this run had a death in Theory of Everything too. So how was he able to save so much time? Well, it's about time we talk about skips in Geometry Dash. Starting on level 15, there are triggers in the game that can change your velocity. In theory, if you skip over a trigger that slows you down, you'd finish the level faster. This is exactly what Lexicon does on Hexagon Force. By hitting the orbs as late as possible and clicking immediately after turning into a UFO, you can skip the speed portal. A similar trick can be done in the level Theory of Everything too. By staying in the lower part at the transition to the UFO part, you can skip the velocity portal. The difficulty of this trick though comes in surviving the UFO part, as you're playing on an already difficult level at twice its intended speed. If everything was done correctly, you could save 4 seconds in the Hexagon 4 skip and 1.5 seconds in the Theory of Everything 2 skip. Wait, what? That doesn't make any sense! Lexicon lost 15 seconds to his death and only gained 6 seconds from the skips. How was he able to get the rest? Well, there's a very easy explanation for this. He didn't do the Cycles mistake, which saved him 5 seconds over Guitar's run. He gained the rest of the time by doing faster menus. In Geometry Dash, you need to make at least 21 menu switches in order to complete the game. So if you're able to gain just a quarter of a second per menu, you'll finish the game 5 seconds earlier. Lexicon was clearly a very skilled dasher. The most incredible thing about this run was not the execution, but that it was actually his 5th attempt. With his extreme skills, he could clearly get a better time, but he needed to put in work. And putting the work he did. This run was extremely solid. It didn't have any deaths, and it did the theory of everything 2 skip. Lexicon was also able to save a big chunk of time by doing perfect menus. As times on death decreased, menus became a more important part of the run. It's counterintuitive to think the trickiest part of the run were not parts of the gameplay. Let's dissect how they work and how you lose and win time. After completing a level in Geometry Dash, a menu will appear showing that you completed the level. In order to avoid the completion screen, runners spam escape until they hear this audio cue. If they keep pressing escape after hearing the cue, they might be sent to the main menu, losing up to 4 seconds and killing the run. After exiting the level, they had to press the right key and then the spacebar to play the level, but only after the screen is fully loaded. If you hit play before the level screen is loaded, you'll have to go back to the main menu in order to play again, which will lose you around 5 seconds and most likely kill your run. Just to recap, move too slow and you'll lose time, move too quick and you won't be able to play. Menuing the block was apart. There was a clear way someone could improve this run. Lexicon actually missed the hexagon 4 skip, leaving money on the table. It was also this point when a 2015 video resurfaced showing this happening in the Geometrical Dominator. In the transition to the UFO, if you wait until the last second to start going up and release immediately after turning into a UFO, you can actually miss the slowdown portal, saving you around 1.5 seconds. Armed with 5 seconds of time save, the community for sure would beat this record soon. Well, actually, that didn't happen. To understand why, we have to understand that this game is actually extremely difficult. So much so, in fact, that to this day, only 6 people have ever done a deathless run. This wasn't due to community inactivity either, as there was tens of millions of levels uploaded to the servers in the time this run was the record. So this run stood, and it stood. 2018 came around and passed like nothing to its category. Who knew that a year where the record was broken 7 times would be followed by a year of pure stagnation? One could say 2018
came and went like the summertime.
And so 2019 came around. The months passed by and it was looking like 2018 all over again. But it would not be like 2018 at all. In April of 2019, a streamer by the name of Creepium Gamer would start attempts. He wasn't a world record contender by any means, but he was up there in the rankings. That is until he got a 3257 with just 1 death on Hexagon Force. When the standards are as high as deathless, a run like this would show incompetence in any other game but in Geometry Dash. This run though got the attention of the people. He had commented before he was going for a deathless, and on April 27th, 2019, he would have achieved exactly that. His run started with some fine menuing, but by the time he finished Clubstep, he was a whole second ahead of his PB. The run was looking promising, but he still needed to get the Hexagon 4 skip.
Alright, here we go.
He perfectly got the skip. Now all he had ahead of him was the theory of everything 2 skip and not dying. He got the theory of everything 2 skip too, which means he only needed to finish the run. And that's exactly what he did.
Yes! Woo! 32-21. 1 second behind record.
Hold on, you might say. He got both skips while Lexicon only got 1. How was he still 1 second behind? The answer is actually quite simple. Lexicon had a better gaming share, but also he was way better at menuing and load times were different per computer, which is an issue we will talk about later. Although he was an extremely promising prospect, he would unfortunately never run the category again, so the run would stay unchallenged. In the month of September, 5 months after Creepium and 22 months after Lexicon's run, a Bulgarian player by the name of Leo started making attempts. He wasn't well known in speedrunning, but his achievements in Extreme Demons spoke for themselves. He would start streaming attempts on the 16th night of September, getting a 33:42, placing him at 7th place. The day after that, he would get a run of 32:20, placing him within spitting distance of the record. Although impressive at the time, he would go on to delete it, as only 2 days later he would get this run. Leo had done it. He had beaten the longest standing record in any category at this time. His run was extremely solid. It didn't have any deaths or soft locks. It included every skip known by the community at the time. But as we would later find out, not every skip known to man. Something curious you might immediately notice upon rewatching the footage is that he doesn't start on Stereo Madness but Jumper, losing a tenth of a second to the extra screen. He intentionally does this to get the hard parts out of the way from the beginning. Something peculiar about this run is that it would be the first and last time anyone got the record while collecting every single point. Also, this would be the shortest lived record of the category. See, a French player by the name of Exile was lurking in the shadows, perfecting 2 tricks that would stun the community. This was his run 4 days later. Exo had done the unthinkable. He pulled off what is considered the hardest skip even to this day. Coupled with the skip discovery and finger dash, this is possibly the most revolutionary run in Geometry Dash speedrunning. Exo took time off his busy schedule beating top 1s to perfect a trick I like to call fast hexagon force. As it turns out, the level hexagon force is way more broken than anyone could imagine. At the end of this mini ship section, there are 3 portal triggers, but only 2 are really relevant. The first one turns you from dual to single. The second one turns you from mini to normal size, but to do a small displacement, if you stand on that exact pixel, you can skip it. This is what it looks like at full speed. If you're wondering why we would want to stay small, well, once you turn into a cube you can do this. This trick makes you skip the slow section at the end of the level, saving you around 6 seconds. Upon realizing how difficult this run was to replicate, shock was the only reaction the community could have. For the first time, runners seemed to not have any reliable way to improve the record. This run looked like it was gonna stand for a long time. In the month of May 2020, 7 months after Exile's record, 2 important decisions would be made by the moderation team. The first one took out load times of the final time to be more fair. Using this method, Exile's run was retimed to be a 31:53. The second one increased the frames per second limit from 60 to 360. This was a bit controversial at the time because it allowed the use of Mega Hack, but now even Minecraft allows the use of mods in the run. With 360 FPS, minis could be made slightly faster, which translates to about 4 seconds of time save during the entire run. Also, Exo's run had a lot of back and forth between menu screens, making it possible to save time there too. This means that it was technically possible to beat this record without the immensely precise hexagon force skip. But even a year after this announcement, Exo still had the record. For you to understand how crazy that is, in the same time Exo was the record holder, the Dark Soul record was lowered by 10 minutes and 34 seconds. The Hitman, codename 47 record was lowered by 6 minutes and 25 seconds. The Wii Sports Resorts record was lowered by 43 seconds. And the Simpsons Hit and Run record was lowered by 6 minutes and 13 seconds. Every single map pack and gauntlet record except one had been broken. Lexicon's run had stood for 677 days during his reign. At this point, Exo's record had stood for 649 days, less than a month needed for it to be the longest standing record. Of course, Lexicon would not let that happen. Yup, you're seeing that right. Despite 360 FPS saving so much time, even the best of players could not beat Exo's time. Turns out that Exo's time run had been mistimed 3 seconds lower, making his run truly a 31:50. But of course, Lexicon would not give up so easily. He knew that he could get a record if he used 2 more skips he wasn't going for. 2 days later he would break Exile's record with a 31:49. This left a bittersweet taste in the community though. The record was broken, but it was missing the skip with the biggest time save. The only reason this record was broken was because of higher frame rates, according to Lexicon himself.
360 FPS is a meme.
Admittedly, Lexicon was unhappy with this run. He knew he could match Excel's streak. He would keep the community waiting though, as he would get this run 5 months after his previous record.
I did it. I've been wanting to do that for literally, I think, a year.
Lexicon had pulled the greatest run of all time. Great menus, all skips in 360 FPS, no soft locks. Runners were once again faced with a seemingly unbeatable run. The only way to improve this was by lowering the number of menus, but runners needed to start on hexagon force, as the skip was too hard to be done 20 minutes into a run. For you to understand how difficult this trick is, in the hundreds of attempts Lexicon did, he only got it twice. He estimated the chances of fast hexagon force at 2 to 5%. This is because in 360 FPS, there is a 3-frame window to perform the jump, or roughly 0.008 seconds. For this jump you have half the time frame it would take for this frame perfect jump in Super Mario Bros. 1. It would be discouraging for most, for the only improvement of the record to be better menuing. But our next runner is not like most. Introducing Matt Turk. Haha, just kidding. Our next runner is Noob, which is a name you definitely know if you've seen the leaderboards. Noob's approach was simple. Do everything Lexicon did, but menu faster. And man did he know how to menu faster. And this is where the record stands today. Through years of hard work, dedication, and skip finding, Geometry Dash speedrunners have been able to break barriers. Although Noob's record is extremely polished, it looks like we are entering a new era with the use of resize exploits. With resize exploits, there is now a more consistent setup for fast hexagon force. A new skip in Deadlock with lag abuse was found. This could save over a second and could lead the path for other levels. With all the new tricks discovered and 2.2 being on the near horizon, I really look forward to seeing what this group of legends will do.